it's Sunday the 15th of March, and I'm currently heading off to a Cooper's lipstick practice. We've had to move it from Friday to today, so I'm looking forward to that. So I thought while I was driving up to the Red House, I'd talk to you a little bit about me and about my condition and about my disability and how that affects me, how that affects my music, how that affects my life in general, and just sort of give you a little bit of a background. You know, this is the 10th episode in the series, and it wasn't until part way through the last sort of episode or two that a couple of friends messaged me and said, "You do realise you're reaching out to an audience that probably doesn't know about your disability and about you." So I have a condition called Osteogenesis imperfecta, which is otherwise known as brittle bones. Here in the UK, I'm classified as a type 3 genetically. I say here in the UK because different countries have different sort of typings and different ordering. So I have the most severe without being fatal. So there are 4 main recognised types. I think there's up to 7 now, but the 4 sort of main types, and they go 2, 3, 4, 1 in severity. And I'm genetically a type 3. The type 2s are not expected to make it much past infancy, and I've known a few type 2s over the years, and sadly they haven't. I've also known a few survive but end up with fractures and breaks to the point that it's made their life extremely difficult and has in the end sadly caused fatality. So a bit of background about myself. My mum and dad don't have the condition, even though it's mainly a genetic hereditary condition. You can also get an out of the blue case, as they're known, or like any genetic mutation. So my parents don't have it and my sister doesn't have it. My grandparents don't have OI. My nan on my dad's side has osteoporosis, but for those of you who aren't aware, you can develop osteoporosis, you can't develop osteogenesis. Osteogenesis imperfecta, which is what I've got, is completely genetic. Osteoporosis can be developed by lack of calcium, amongst other things. So when I was born, my parents had no idea I had the condition. I think they said it took about 24 hours to diagnose me, and I was diagnosed. Dad tells me the story every time. I was diagnosed because the consultant, Dr. Tricker, who was with me till the age of 17, he came up to mum and dad and said, "I think this is what he's got. I think this is why he's breaking and why he's upset." And a nurse walked past who happened to have just done a whole dissertation on OI, and basically gave her input and also helped to confirm the diagnosis. So from about 24 hours old, I was diagnosed. I had broken both legs on my arm within the first week of being born. I broke my leg being born. I am, as of today, I'm 30. I'm 31 in September of 2020. I have had roughly 200 breaks. That's rough because by the time I was 4 or 5, we were in the 80s and we gave up counting. I also, you can argue I've had more. I don't massively count fingers and thumbs and toes. To memory, I've done 13 or 14 bones. So I've done both shins, I've done my left ankle, I've done both femurs several times, I've done both humeruses, both upper arms, I've done both lower arms, I've done my left collarbone twice, I've broken the bridge of my nose. That was a stable fracture, but I've done that. Broken ribs, I've crushed vertebrae in my back together. I mean, the year I was learning to drive, I mean, I'm using hand controls. You probably can't see that much from here. I'm using hand controls with a push-pull lever and a steering wheel. The year I learned to drive was my last year at school, and I broke my right arm 9 times and my ankle once in that 1 year. So growing up, as you can imagine, for my parents it was hard. I spent weeks on a thing called gallows traction, which is where I had my legs hung up. I think I spent 48 or 49 out of the 52-week year on that 1 year. To this day I could still brake as easily. There are some changes around that which I'll explain in a bit. But basically I could brake just sat still. I didn't have to necessarily have an impact. Some of them could be contraction of muscles, which would then cause a brake or a twist or impact, or it could be anything. So growing up, I was braking regularly at school, I was braking at home. It became hard work to sort of justify what I could and couldn't do. On a massive positive to that though, my parents were wanted to make sure I had the best life I could and could do everything that I wanted to do. So at a very young age I had 2 rods inserted into both my femurs. Those rods were expanding rods, so they allowed them to grow with me, and what they did is then meant that if I did fracture my femur, I already had a stable sort of base to that bone, which, although it didn't stop the break, reduced some and obviously stabilised fractures quicker. So I have 2 scars right down the sides of both of my femurs. One of them actually is half gone, which a lot of medical professionals are confused by. They've never seen scars disappear. And then around the age of 7 or 8 I had them replaced because I'd grown out of them. Sadly with that, one of them actually got infected and I had a year's worth of issues with my left leg, which meant that a hole developed in my leg for no apparent reason. And after a year of research and investigations, we decided it was the rod. So we took that out. So my right leg I still have a rod in, but my left leg I don't. And so growing up, I didn't really walk. I tried to walk at a very young age, around 2 or 3. I remember briefly trying to walk when I was at school, and I used to ride a tricycle to try and build my legs up a bit. But what we found was that as I was trying to build my legs up, I was either breaking them or I was overcompensating with my arms and breaking them. And I was born in '89, and growing up there wasn't all these medical advancements around drugs and treatment for OI. There was stuff in the pipeline, but it wasn't available. So through sort of from like the age of 4ish, I ended up in a wheelchair. Not permanently, well, I say not permanently, not full time, because I used to get out and shuffle around the house and get around that way. But I had a Marshall wheelchair, which they would again grow with you as you got older. I think I had a Marshall for years, and then when I sort of reached my teens and I was at secondary school and so on, I started to branch out a little bit more. I started to go and play cricket for Somerset Disabled, who I still play for. I started to do all the sports at school. I was always playing tennis or squash or getting involved playing basketball, netball with the guys, and I broke my arm several times at school. I had a batch of very good close friends, one of them who I still work with today. Me and him went to secondary school together, did the same college course and uni course, and did the same apprenticeship together, and we actually work very closely now. He used to help me get around school when I broke my arm. I had lots of support from friends. But yeah, through my teenage years, I was braking reasonably regularly. And then, as I say, I learned to drive at the age of 16, because being disabled in the UK, you can learn to drive a year early. And I passed my test 2 days after my 17th birthday. So from there, so that was sort of a few years ago now. And in 2007, I broke my arm at college. I tipped myself out of my chair by mistake, and I broke my arm. And that was sort of a bit devastating for me, obviously, as they always were. But then I didn't then break again until 2013, which was a massive sort of gap for me. It's the unspoken thing. You don't speak about the time that you haven't had a break, but you know, I want to give you guys a bit of insight around that. So years and years, all the way up to every year up to then, I'd been breaking. From about mid-2004, I started on a drug called primidronate, which was a bisphosphonate drug, and that was given on an intravenous drip every 3 months. And what that did is that increased my bone density, and I grew in height, so I went from 3'6" to 4'8". But obviously with growth spurts, what it means is that you fracture more. However, the bisphosphonate, the purpose of it was to increase the bone density to help reduce fractures. And I went years only having 1 or 2, you know, and not a lot. And then they got to the point where they said to me, we needed to take you off the bisphosphonate because you're getting to the point where you have too much of it. And that year was the year I was learning to drive, and I broke lots. So they then put me on a different drug called risedronate, which is what I take now. And that's a once-a-week pill. And what that drug does for me is it just keeps my bone density stable. And that's been a life changer for me between the 2 bisphosphonates. It's allowed me very minimal fractures. I mean, touch wood, I've not had one since that one in 2013. Had some close scares. I've had some torn muscles and soft tissue damage, but nothing since. So I've been really lucky with that. I mean, I can walk very, very minimally, enough to get my chair in out the car and to walk around the car a little bit and walk into places if it's not far distance, but it's very minimal distance wise. And I'm always in pain. I mean, that never goes away. The minute I stand up, my legs are hurting because you know, my body's not used to it. So really, I learned to walk at the age of 17. So that was quite a big change for me. So how's that impacted my life in the way of things that I do? It has and it hasn't. A lot of my friends, you know, we talk about it a lot and said, if you could be cured, would you be cured? And a lot of us say no. For me, no. If I could stop my kids from having it, because there's a 50-50 chance, then yes, I would take it away from them. But for me, no. I've lived with it for so long now. It's part of my life. The way I am, the people I've met, you know, the way my life goes, that's kind of all part of it now. So that's a big part of me, really. But how's it impacted me? It's not stopped me doing anything. I play cricket, I drive, I work full time, I play other sports with friends, you know, I play in a pool league, I gig regularly, as you guys know. So how's it affected my music life? Interesting, that one. Touch wood, I've not had to cancel any gigs due to broken bone injury. I had to cancel one a year or so ago for another injury, but that wasn't bone related. But I used to use the guitar as a great way to help build the muscles back up. So I'd break my arm, I'd wait 3 or 4 weeks, let it heal up, and then I'd pick a guitar up again and start trying to, you know, get the motion going, help build the muscle back up, just get natural movements back going again. So for me, the guitar's been really good in that. And also songwriting from that aspect. I'm not afraid to admit it. When I break, I hit a very, very low place. I hit a very dark place. It's not nice. It's not this is painful kind of thing. It's this is going to stop me doing all of these things. I mean, I used to break on the second day of the school holidays. I'd break my femur and, you know, spent 6 weeks in bed because I couldn't move and couldn't go very far. The only time we went out was for hospital appointments. But then I've done everything from that through to being able to, you know, go out and live a full and happy life. And you know, I've got an amazing partner, and I say my life's never been stopped. My parents have been very supportive in everything I've done. Yeah, I've met the naysayers. I've met that you can't do that, and you know, you shouldn't be doing that, and so on. And I think part of it has been drilled into me growing up that, you know, that doesn't mean anything. You know, I've met people with my condition and with other conditions that have just felt that in their eyes their life is over, or they don't feel that they need to expand their horizons, and for me that's wrong. I'm here to live a full and happy life, and I'm here to show people what I can do. So that's where the Guitarist on Wheels thing came in. I used it as a username for a few years, and then as I started gigging, I think I've said this before, as I started gigging, then that kind of became a sort of half jokey nickname. So yeah, my OI is a big part of my life. I have a wishbone tattoo on my left arm. Wishbone is the symbol of the Brittle Bone Society. I'll put some links to them below for more information. They've got really good fact sheets. They are the oldest charity in the UK to support people with my condition, and they've been an absolute godsend for information. I know growing up my parents went to them a bit for conferences and support, and they've been amazing with that. So I have a nice little group of OI friends. We all have a good laugh. We usually go to a conference once a year and we meet up, and yeah, you've never seen a nuttier group. We're always laughing. That's always the key bit for us, is laughter solves not everything but most things, and so that's a big part of my life. So how's it negatively impacted me and my condition? Obviously, naturally being a wheelchair user, that can reduce down accessibility in locations. I always try and work around that. I am very lucky that I can get out of my wheelchair. I'm extremely lucky that with support and help from people, I can get up onto stages and things like that. You know, you'll see, hopefully in future vlogs, you know, hoping that gigs go ahead, you'll see that some of the venues aren't always perfect for me, but we have ways of getting around that. And yeah, really, you know, I don't massively have huge negatives. I mean, I do live with fear in my life all the time. Not a huge amount, but I go to gigs and there's lots of drunk people around. I try and avoid them. I mean, I don't drink myself. That's a personal choice. That's nothing medical. I don't smoke. I don't do any recreational drugs. You know, this is all choices of my own. I've got friends with my condition that do all of those things, and that's absolutely fine. For me, it's about self-awareness, about being, you know, if I'm not drunk, I can avoid drunk people, if that makes sense. So it's all about that side of things for me. And yeah, like I say, I live a happy life, I live a full life. So that's a little bit about me, really. But, you know, if you listen to a track of mine called Through the Spokes, which was actually the title track of the last album, Through the Spokes was written because people don't want to ask me questions. They don't want to talk to me about my condition or why I'm in a wheelchair or what the impact of that is. And I want people to. I want that feedback. I want that input. So, you know, if you guys want to ask me something, find me on social media, come and talk to me, put comments in the video below, please do. You know, I'll answer openly and honestly as I can. I've been asked everything that you can imagine, you know, so if you can find a random question that I haven't been asked, please feel free to drop it down, and we'll see what comes of it. But yeah, for me, this vlog was about giving you a little bit of background about my condition, and about what it means for me to have OI.